Hi, and welcome to ShadowTalk's weekly intelligence summary track, where our team of analysts dive into the top threat intelligence stories each week. To read their full findings and analysis, make sure to visit resources.digitalshadows.com. Now here's your host, Harrison Van Riper.
What's up, everyone? I'm HVR, and welcome to another episode of Shadow Talk, Digital Shadow's weekly threat intelligence and discussion podcast. We've got a great show this week, leading off talking about how a recent abuse of the legitimate features within Google Calendar got the analysts kind of thinking about how threat actors are continuing to develop new techniques abusing legitimate services. Then we've also got the second half of our interview with Ryan Kovar, principal security strategist at Splunk. He and Rick are going to talk about diversity within information security and threat intelligence, as well as Splunk's developing Superwomen in Cybersecurity event, as well as some other InfoSec volunteering that we've done in the past. Joining me this week for a threat intelligence wrap-up, though, here in Dallas is Alex Girikou. How are you doing, my friend? How is the Mr. Zuko?
I'm doing pretty well. Zuko, on the other hand, is not enjoying this hot weather we're having.
I saw a video of you deferring him.
Deferring him? Yeah. We have to brush him almost every single day and run the vacuum every single day because it's just creating a brand new dog.
I was going to say, it's like a little new pup right there. Yeah. And then joining us on the line in London, we have Jamie Collier, the Collier Jam on Twitter. It has been a hot minute since you've been on the pod, Jamie, and I've missed you so very much. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Harrison, although I can assure you I've missed you more.
Oh, I don't think that's possible, Jamie. It's not actually possible.
I assure you it is.
All right, well, as we send text messages back and forth about how much we missed each other, Alex will carry on with the main story this week in the intelligence summary, all about threat actors abusing legitimate services, a trend that we have observed kind of growing over the last couple of years. Tell us some more.
So this research was kind of jump-started by a report about a campaign whereby threat actors were abusing a feature within Google Calendar to distribute some malicious phishing URLs. And so what they essentially did was they used a feature which allows people to receive invites from people who aren't in their contact lists, and it just puts it on their calendars. So those malicious URLs led to supposed questionnaires that offered prizes if the victims completed them, but in order to be eligible, you had to hand over some of your personal and financial information like phone number, name, and such. So it's not quite known how that stolen information was used, but like with all campaigns, the data could have been sold online, it could have been used to make fraudulent transactions or even to facilitate additional campaigns like this one. So this campaign is one amongst a few others that we've seen over the past 6 months alone. Ones that stood out to me were threat actors abusing services like Google Drive, Google Firebase, Google Sites, Google Chrome, Google Translate, and of course Gmail across a variety of different campaigns. So threat actors are getting pretty crafty now as people become more aware of the dangers of kind of these commonly seen social engineering lures, and also as email clients become more sophisticated and are able to more efficiently see these scam messages and filter them out before anyone gets to see them.
Also, as people become more reliant on other services other than just like Microsoft Office or something like that, since obviously this is a lot of targeting of Google.
Yeah. So it's almost certain that these products are being used because of how ubiquitous they are. I mean, they're relied upon by millions of people and organizations as well across the world. So what's interesting about this is that while threat actors are using these kind of new phishing techniques, the general tactics typically remain the same. So a lot of these things carry over from the more traditional email phishing campaigns. So we have things like a catchy title in the subject line of an email, and that easily translates over in the Google in the Google Calendar example with the event title. And just as threat actors would put something specific to an organization or an individual to make them click on a link in the actual body text of an email, we saw that as well in the Google Calendar, so you'd have that in the event details. So it's interesting how threat actors are adapting their tactics to these new techniques. And I think this is something that we're going to continue to see over the next couple of months and even over the next year as well. So these products are definitely useful because, the Google name has a sense of legitimacy to it, right? So if people see a link to Google Translate or whatever, they're more inclined to click on it because it has the name Google. And also, a lot of these programs are used by businesses, so they're going to have to be whitelisted to some extent. So more traditional kind of security software is not going to catch them as they would malicious emails and such.
The Google Translate thing we've actually talked about on
a
here,
previous
right?
podcast. Yeah, we have. So for those of you who don't remember, this was where threat actors were using traditional phishing URLs and disguising it by running it through the Google Translate software first. So when people would get it, they wouldn't see the phishing URL first. They'd see the translate.google.com/whatever the malicious URL is.
So even on like, if it went to like a mobile device, I guess you wouldn't even be able to see that second half automatically.
Yeah, so you just see that first little bit and you'd click on it. And so because of the wide range of different products out there, threat actors can kind of choose which they want for each specific campaign. So for example, what we've seen with the Firebase platform, which is a mobile and web app development platform, that might be more suited for malvertising, whereas Google Translate, like we said, is probably more useful to obscure otherwise obvious phishing URLs. So like I said, I think that this is almost certainly going to continue, namely the abuse of legitimate services and platforms. And what's also interesting, or what is also going to be interesting to see, is how threat actors continue to adapt to this. So one example that I thought of was that instead of sending calendar invites with URLs leading to forms which capture information, that could possibly be adapted to contain links to malware downloaders or malvertising, for example. So that remains to be seen, but I think in essence this highlights how important it is to have a multi-layered defense strategy. So essentially you shouldn't place complete trust even in whitelisted applications, I think is the moral of this. So just always remain vigilant, always remain always have a watchful eye.
I think also like not relying on a single service for your security features. So like even though Google or Microsoft or whoever it might be might have really good defenses built into that one product, I think having something like 2FA or like a single sign-on service through a different, not really connected to Google, I think also kind of adds to that defense in depth sort of strategy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, cool. So for the full analysis, be sure to go download the entire intelligence summary at resources.digitalshadows.com. And while you're at it, send us some feedback for the podcast. You can tweet directly at me at pseudohvr, that's at pseudohvr, or email into messages@digitalshadows.com. All right, moving on to the other highlights from this week. Jamie, we've got some new research from Dragos about the Xenotime threat group targeting utility companies. Tell me more.
Yeah, that's right, Harrison. So Xenotime is a group that have previously conducted attacks on the oil and gas sector. These are believed to have, been intended to cause significant destructive impact and widespread disruption. Even suggestions that previous campaigns, if they were successful, could have led to a loss of life. So they've now broadened their targeting to the electricity sector, both in the Asia Pacific, but primarily within the United States. Now, given those previous campaigns and their kind of destructive potential, this is certainly concerning. However, there are also some important bits of context to bear in mind. So the first thing to bear in mind is that the campaigns against the electricity sector have only been conducting reconnaissance, information gathering, those kind of early stages of a campaign. We've not seen those kind of network intrusions in depth yet. There's also a range of reasons they could be doing this. Targeting the electricity sector could fall into more traditional forms of cyber espionage activity. So crucially, we've not seen any evidence as of yet that they are seeking to cause widespread disruption or, severe compromises to the power grid. So, kind of hopefully won't have a kind of die-hard situation anytime soon, but wait and see, I guess. And I guess the third thing to bear in mind is that even if they did want to cause that significant disruption to the power grid, it's actually much more difficult to carry this sort of attack out than is maybe portrayed in Hollywood movies. And there's often a significant segregation between different parts of a network. The nature of these ICS networks is that they're really specialized, and therefore, to attack them, you need that specialized understanding. They typically require multi-staged campaigns that require going through multiple hoops. So, more opportunity there to detect and prevent for organizations that are concerned, worth consulting the MITRE attack page of this threat actor, for example, to really get an understanding of how they operate. And then also, there are safety systems in place that are designed to prevent disasters, designed to prevent power outages. So hopefully, amongst the concern, there's a lot to be optimistic about as well.
So, Jamie, are you trying to tell me that movies are not accurate? Not entirely 100% truth?
I'm afraid so, but I'm sure if you were to make a movie, Harrison, it would be very accurate.
It would be accurate to scale and to historical, any sort of measure that you could do.
Exactly. I guess I'm not sure which actor would be good enough to play you in a movie, though. That would be my first question.
It would be you.
Concern.
You would be the actor.
This is getting weird, so I think we should move on.
All right, Alex, back over to you. There's been some observed targeting of Exim email servers.
So Exim email servers account for about 57% of all internet email servers, and we recently saw 2 different threat groups actively targeting a flaw affecting them. So I absolutely love this name, and I can't get enough of it. So the flaw is dubbed Return of the Wizard.
What?
Return of the Wizard.
That's awesome.
It sounds like a budget version of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it does. All right.
Anyway, that flaw allows attackers to send emails with malicious scripts to vulnerable servers and then insert post-exploitation scripts, which then can provide root access via SSH. So because of how popular Exim servers are, this flaw is likely to be actively targeted additionally over the next couple of weeks. So anyone using Exim is advised to upgrade to the most recent version because that vulnerability has been patched in the most recent versions. So unless you want to be affected by the Return of the Wizard, should probably get on that patch update.
I mean, it also could be a budget Star Wars, because Return of the Jedi. Jedis are basically
technically wizards, space wizards.
Yeah, they're space wizards.
Yeah, so it's like a mix of the two.
Yeah.
I can't get that out of my head now. So.
Yeah.
There you go. So patch your Exim servers.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right, Jamie, bring us home with our final highlight. There's some APT-39 activity.
That's right, Harrison. The Iranian state-associated group APT-39 has continued to conduct espionage against the transport sector. Information about the targets, both specific organizations involved and their geographies, was a bit vague. But we think that the activity was likely intended to bolster surveillance efforts. Clearly been a lot of reporting on Iran cyber operations at the moment. Also, tensions going on with the US in particular from a geopolitical standpoint. So it's going to be really interesting going forward to see where Iranian operations go. The majority of Iranian operations over the last few years have still taken place in the Middle East. Could we start to see a bit more of a change, maybe more attention on the US? Time will tell.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. All right. Well, that will do it for Threat Intel for this week. Coming up next is our interview with Ryan Kovar of Splunk.
There's one other area, just to pivot a little bit, that I'm very passionate about. But let me go back to the SAN CTI Summit. Yes, shocking. But in the 2017 conference, which you spoke at so many, but at the 2017 conference, at the end of the year or the end of the show, we took a picture of the advisory board and the speakers, and it was kind of a sad state and representative of the current status quo, I guess, for InfoSec conferences and the workforce. It was all people that look like you and me. It was
really handsome people,
gorgeous
white males in their 30s,
lots of hair, great
50s.
great hair,
some beard, some pop.
But I think we only had Rebecca may have been the only.
I didn't even think she was up there that year.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So we made an effort. Well, it was an eye opener. Well, it wasn't an eye opener. I wasn't ignorant to the current state, but it really kind of lit a passion around me for the next year. We wanted to have a more diverse group of speakers, and we did do better. We're not where we want to go. There's no mission accomplished here. But I know that this is also an area of interest, and you've done a lot for the community here.
Yeah,
so let's talk about it.
It's been a big passion of mine. It was kind of a awakening for me in a similar fashion of that conference. But there's two big things I see is, A, as someone who does like to practice or at least play on TV threat intelligence, when everyone in the room looks the same, has the same background, the same experience, it's very hard to break your biases, to have external thoughts come in.
You mean groupthink is not a good thing?
Not necessarily, unless it's advantageous to me. In which case, I think groupthink is good. Peace is war. And this was crystallized for me. I was in, as many of us end up doing in the threat intelligence world, where you're part of the DoD and things like this. You invited or you speak at kind of what I would say super secret squirrel meetings with people from various government institutions and squirrels all over the place. But you're invited to speak or collaborate in these threat sharing groups. And there was one we were having where a gentleman who looked just like me, really lovely gentleman, a little bit earlier in his career, and he was discussing a sub-Saharan APT group. And he was going over his thoughts on it and what he's translated and how he did it and how he thought, and I'm not going to go into too many details here for all the TLP reasons, but he was going into why he thought this actor was targeting this other nation and everything along those lines. And there was another gentleman in the room who was perhaps a bit swarthier than the rest of us. He was actually from sub-Saharan Africa. He was the only person of color in the entire room. And he goes, that's really interesting because the dialect that you're showing up there is actually not at all the country that you're saying. It's actually from this small region in another part of a different country that's actually part of diaspora from there of like 300 years ago. And suddenly 50 heads just kind of turned and looked. And the guy goes, oh, are you just literally saying all my analysis is wrong? He's like, we should really talk afterwards. And it was just a really great example. This guy has really done great work, but he didn't have the knowledge and he didn't have anyone to speak to or go into for this sort of aspect. And like it crystallized to me that diversity in a team is great. And then if you expand that, like if you look around, like, okay, that's just everyone in the room was still men. It's just one person happened to not be a North American or British male. And that was wonderful. And then as we started going more and more, I see how in my own career, I've ever only actually worked with 5 women on my team. I've now been working since 1999. I've only ever had 5 peers who have been women, and 2 of them have been since I joined Splunk, which is just insane to me. And as I've kind of gone through that career, one of the things now, Splunk itself is very into diversity initiatives. We actually now publish every year our male to female ratios for every role that we have. We have a diversity initiative officer who's going through and trying to help our whole company do this. And one of the things one of our vice presidents sponsored one year at our internal conference was a Women in Technology session. And it was a champagne soiree, so we kind of sat there and we all talked and we were mingling, and I was speaking to a young woman there named Kelly Kitagawa about how I was really interested in helping, but I didn't feel like yet another man telling women how to do things was
like
really
mansplaining about diversity.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
like,
a good approach.
Yeah, telling her how I would love to help her, but all these problems going on. And she just kind of said, I'm going to stop you right there. We can't actually get the door open unless people like you kick it open and hold it for us. And as I did more research into this, I found there is a difference between just being someone who's okay with diversity and embracing of it, to actually being an active ally, to the next step, which I would call actually being an advocate. And so the last couple of years, what I've really worked hard on in my own career is to become an advocate within Splunk for women in tech and then also other places. We developed something I'm very proud of called Developing Super Women in Cybersecurity, which is a program where we have done this in 4 cities. We're about to do 5. We're doing another one in Chicago. Where we actually do a morning of talks by what I call doer women. So badass women in cybersecurity. They're not at a CISO level. They're at a Rebecca Brown level. They're at a direct line manager or analyst level. And we just ask them to speak about whatever they're passionate about. If they want to talk about their career, hey, you go for it. If you want to talk about the newest malware you reversed, go for it. But the goal of this is actually to normalize women in cybersecurity rather than anything else. Like, just make it normal to see badass women talking about cybersecurity things. And then the afternoon, we actually run collaborative education and the boss of the SOC, CTF. And so that's something we've done internally that we just spearheaded ourselves and did, and it's been hugely successful. We've had a lot of great people like Zena from Cheerio on Twitter. Other people have really helped advocate for that and amplify the message. And then personally, I've tried to do more mentorship and aligning with women to actually get their status elevated if I can, through ways I can, or just literally stop looking at my own friends for people to do speakerships or speaking with or research with.
Yeah, I think it's important to get outside the usual suspects. And
as we talk to usual suspects.
Yeah, as we talk about bringing other usual suspects in. although as we start to have more external speakers on the podcast, that's something that we're going to be focused on. I mean, we've had Katie. She was our first guest speaker, Katie from MITRE ATT&CK. And I know that you guys just recently found out that you're going to be presenting at Black Hat together.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Katie Nichols and I have been friends for pushing on 8 years now. We're both from the DC tribe of cybersecurity warriors and super secret squirrel stuff there. And that's where I met her much earlier in her career. And now she's kind of blown up, and we're all just riding her coattails to success. But no, we're speaking together at Black Hat called MITRE ATT&CK, the play at home version. So the idea is you take someone who was part of the MITRE ATT&CK team, and he's actually helping develop the techniques and tactics for MITRE ATT&CK, and then someone like myself who's really just a practitioner. I work at Splunk and we do things with MITRE ATT&CK quite a bit. So I've seen a lot of customers actually try to take what's on paper and then apply it and fail. And then just kind of my thoughts on how we can improve that, and then back and forth, kind of go from the ivory tower into the practitioner, and then also have the ivory tower tell the practitioner why they're completely wrong. So
yeah, for those that are going to be in Vegas, this is probably must-see TV from a talk perspective. Katie's phenomenal. She spoke at the SANS-CTI Summit, which may have been one of her first public conferences.
Yeah, I believe so.
And you wouldn't have thought that. Now she's on the speaking circuit, and she's really being a great advocate for MITRE ATT&CK, for diversity. In fact, we were just talking about we need to have her back on the podcast again. In fact, congratulations, Katie, for your recent promotion. We were very happy for that, and it's very well deserved. This area on diversity is huge. As we've been talking about, one of the things that we just recently did at Digital Shadows is I'm on the board of an organization called the Security Advisor Alliance, which is kind of a collective of security leaders whose focus is on giving back to the community. And we just went to Armor's headquarters here in Dallas, which isn't too far from the office, and we had 5 people from the Digital Shadows team, and we worked with about 100 middle school students from Dallas Independent School District, so not up in the suburbs where you have students that have a lot of access to technology and things like that. And it was very nice for us. We were, like I said, 100 students. We did a capture the flag with them. We did a panel about cybersecurity and just trying to educate them about the space. Worked with their teachers, but really trying to help with this funnel of getting more people interested in technology. And it was a super rewarding experience. I have a picture at the end of the day. The group that I was working with, 3 of the students came up to me and said, "Hey, Rick, you're just a wonderful mentor today. I learned a lot. Can I take a picture with you?" And they were smiling. And it was probably the most meaningful thing that's happened to me professionally in a year. And the last time it happened, it was another one of these events. So it was just nice to see, young students, in this case, young Latina students that were excited about cybersecurity. They're very young. They don't know what they're going to do when they grow up. But it was a nice thing. And like I said, we had 5 of us there. And it's nice to give back to the community. And what I like about it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's very easy to get jaded in our space. We can be pessimistic, you can get on Twitter and just get really annoyed very quickly. But to me, it was so rewarding to give something back to the community. And I found it invigorating in a time where you need some invigoration, I think, because we just get burned out from long hours, airplanes and stuff like that. It was great.
It's been one of the best parts I've found about mentoring people or just being more of an advocate is there's things that we do every day that I don't want to say bored at this point, but you feel like it's a constant struggle. And you forget how excited you were when you first started, and getting that breath of fresh air is great for everyone involved. I actually, we were talking about this earlier, but through Splunk, I was asked to come down and give a speech to a Cyber Patriot group down in North Austin at the Georgetown Independent School District, I believe it was called. And it was a little bit of a hands-on exercise, but one thing, if anyone's looking at Mentor for the Cyber Patriot program or the Cyber Collegiate Defense Competition, highly recommend it, but you do need to set your expectations because you're going to have people there who you could literally hire for a junior role tomorrow. They're already hacking away at the Linux kernel shell. And then you have other people there who are going to ask you what an IP is. There's not a wrong answer there. You just have to be prepared you're going to want to share the cool thing you're working on, but sometimes you need to go back to the basics. Either way, though, I found it really fulfilling. What was fun there is I actually got to tell my story of how I got into cybersecurity, which actually started when I was 18 in the Navy. And so for these kids who were 17 and 18 years old, I was able to say, listen, literally, I was right where you were 6 months or 4 months before graduating. I joined the U.S. Navy, 3 years, 10 months, 9 days, doing horrible things for the most part with Cat5 cable and learning Windows NT and Exchange 5.5, and then went up through there, right? And being able to talk to them about that experience and all the different things and what I see today, like what I had to learn 20 years ago, maybe 10% of that is relevant. I mean, the incredible thing about our profession, the incredible thing is you are at any point 2 years away from obsolescence.
No, that's
like
true statement.
Like, oh, you should take a sabbatical. I'm like, what? And come back unemployed? Like, oh, that'll be fun for everyone involved. My Bernese Mountain Dogs will starve. And like, so any person in that room, once they have a general basic understanding of cybersecurity, is 2 years away from literally changing the world in our industry. And that's phenomenal. There's not many other places you can say that. My wife is an art historian. She went to school for 10 years. She has a PhD. Everything she learns adds on to her knowledge base, and that's going to be used for her entire life. Everything I learned about Novell NetWare is pointless. Like 80% of my knowledge.
I was on Syscon yesterday provisioning some accounts, so it still works for me.
I know Digital Shadows is still on Lotus Notes, and I hear it's great.
Domino works really well.
Hey, you joke about Domino. Well, that's where a real old man bias comes out. It's just really fun when you talk to people and you can actually inspire them and say, you know, people are writing code and doing things at 22 and 23 that can change the world. For better or worse sometimes if you're reading the news about malware tech blogs, but...
What do you think, maybe, I don't know, wrap up on this one, but if people are interested in mentoring, you know, what recommendations for doing it? How do I get started in mentoring someone?
That's a good question. What I looked around first, actually, I kind of reverse mentored. So especially if you are someone who looks like me, which is perhaps a 30s or 40s-year-old white male who really does want to help advocate, find yourself a mentor. So Katie and I have actually kind of done some reverse mentoring of, as I've tried to become an advocate in the WIT space, I've actually thrown a lot of stuff over to Katie and said, hey, I want to do this. She's like, yeah, that is a horrible idea. I see where your heart is there, but that is not do not say that or do that. And then finding formalized and informal. There's pluses and minuses there. Formal versions of mentoring or formal organizations like Cyber Patriot and NCCDC are great because they have the apparatus to help you get involved, and highly recommend them. The people I know, like I've spoken recently of Dave Harold, he does Cyber Patriot in Denver. My buddy, best friend Marcus LaFerreira has done it in Alexandria, Virginia. They're all over the place. That's a great place to start very low. I'd say even start, you know, we talk a lot about the best threat intelligence is local. I think looking at your own organization and finding people there that you can help today. And the big thing for me is define what you both want to get out of mentorship, because there's a difference between being a mentor of, hey, I have an idea, what do you think? And then being an active advocate for the person where you're putting them in for the role. So if you're in a senior position and there's a new project coming up and like, God, we should really have somebody, I have just a person for you. I vouch for them and I will make sure that what they do is successful. It's much different than being a mentor. Neither one is better or worse than the other. Just define what every person's looking to get out of it. Has been my experience.
I like the advocacy, you know, I don't know, be more active, you know, vouching for someone is good. I like that approach. Yeah, one of the things I've kind of struggled with when it comes to diversity and trying to be more inclusive is if I talk to someone of color or female or whatever the case may be, I don't want it to seem like I'm having like this token conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Or when we're trying to recruit speakers for conferences, you know, I want you because of your merit. And you're also female, and that's great. But I always am just, I'm sensitive in how I try to communicate because I don't want someone to feel like I'm speaking to them for a token reason, that sort of thing.
That to me has been by having someone, like I said, mentor to me like Katie to help me refine that message and discuss it. And overall, my belief is I'm trying to do better, and I'm going to have failures, and I'm going to have missteps. I actually had a young woman I've been mentoring in my company. We had a great conversation. And she was very worried because of her sexuality and her gender and a couple other things that she was getting preferential treatment. And I was like, well, you might be. And she's like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to earn it myself. I was like, well, you are, because at the end of the day, you're going to have so much thrown at you because of all those other things that if someone's giving you a little bit of a hand up, take it so that you can make it easier for the next person. I was like, because for me, as a middle-aged white male in America, things are great. And I've had mentorship and I've had support my entire career. And all I'm trying to do is help people have that same level, but they're going to fight things that I have no idea about.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me sometimes to give advice on that, so I just don't. What I try to do is open up the doors and fight for them in the places I can, and then connect them with other people that might be more appropriate if it is. But I'll have to find it, and maybe I'll send it out so you guys can put in the links. But there's a great book on the difference between mentorship and advocacy for women in business and in academia, where one of the things they talk about is it's great for women to have women mentors from a professional and social life in terms of being able to understand. But because men are so often in these other positions of power, that without having that relationship, they're not going to get to a next level. And that's kind of what I look as something that I can do and help with for people who are kicking ass and taking names, to use lots of cliches. But as I said, I'm sure I misstep all the time. I just have wonderful people around me to help me get in the right directions.
That's great. At least we're trying and taking steps in the right direction. We need more people to do that and less Twitter trolls.
Less Twitter trolls.
Just all the way around about anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you for talking with us today. And, we'll be able to share everything out in the show notes. If there's anything that we want to link out, we'll include it there. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Oh, it's been great. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
All right, and we're back. So as we do every week, we will end with a question of the week. I'll just go ahead and jump right into it because I am a big cryptocurrency enthusiast. This week we had the announcement of the Libra cryptocurrency by Facebook. It's been generating a lot of attention, to say the least. If you created a cryptocurrency, what would you name it?
I might be partial to Dogecoin, but
it already exists.
I know, so that's why instead I'd create Metacoin.
Metacoin.
And so what Metacoin is, it's a regular currency that's based off a cryptocurrency instead of the other way around.
Wait,
Yes.
How does that work? But how would that work? So so it'd be Metacoin.
It'd be Metacoin.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I want to read your white paper then on this.
I'm going to have to get on that right now,
Okay.
actually, so.
All right. Then while Jamie's giving his answer, you start writing that white paper on how that even works.
I would call my cryptocurrency the unhackable coin. But not only that, I would also claim that it would have military grade encryption. So the reason I would do this is because everyone in the industry loses their mind when someone says their product is unhackable, and it's always enjoyable to observe the Twitter storm afterwards. So that's what I would go for.
That's very true. How much AI would you include into your blockchain?
So I think the real emphasis here would be on the military grade side of things.
Okay.
So lots of kind of analogies with bank vaults and that sort of thing. So I think I'd go more down that route than AI for now.
Okay.
You also don't have to say which military grade it is.
It could be like a fake one.
Yep.
It could be like the rebel forces although they probably have pretty good encryption, actually. Now that we say it, of Star Wars.
Yeah.
In case that wasn't clear, rebel forces actually rebel forces probably don't have very good ones, but the Empire probably has a pretty good one.
Yeah. Or you could do like 12th century military encryption.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as long as you don't specify, you can say whatever you want, Jamie.
Exactly, but trust you guys to bring it back to some sci-fi movie.
Have you seen?
You hate.
Have you seen Avengers yet?
What a bunch of nerds.
All right, well, that will do it for us for this week.
Hey, you haven't said your answer.
Oh, right.
Get out of this one.
Oh man, what would my answer be?
Here you go.
Okay, I know what mine would be. It would be called Starcoin.
Go away.
But no, not because of Star Wars. Because of Starbucks and the way that you would earn. It's kind of like the reward system that they have, but it's basically the way you would earn the coin is if you go to Starbucks and you mine the coffee into your body. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Jamie agrees. Jamie's shaking his head in agreement. It's better than Metacoin or whatever that is. Whatever that is. Now that I've answered, thank you guests, thank you listeners, thank you cryptocurrency for providing me endless amounts of entertainment. Talk to y'all next week.
Bye.